Hey everybody, what's up? Gary Simon here. So today we're going to be checking out more of GSAP, which is the GreenSock animation platform. Now I've done a bunch of videos on GSAP in the past, and basically it allows you to easily create really complex user interface animations for your web apps and your projects basically. And so you could check those out on my channel, and there's a lot of resources outside of my channel for learning GSAP, and it's basically the most powerful and robust way to create awesome animations. All right, so they recently just came out with something called the ScrollTrigger plugin, and it's absolutely free as far as I understand it. And I'm gonna show you exactly how to get up and running with it. Now in the past, when you wanted scroll-based animations, when you were using GSAP, you had to use external libraries like Scroll Magic. You don't have to use that anymore. So now GSAP is basically your all-comprehensive solution for creating animations, scroll-activated animations for your project. So just to show you real quickly, here's a very quick example that I'm gonna show you how to do from scratch. Scroll down, and we have this, really simple, silly looking sort of animation here. And that's using the new Scroll2 plugin, or the Scroll plugin, or ScrollTrigger plugin rather. And I will link this in the description, and there's a lot of information. We're just gonna go over some of the basics and how to get up and running. Now, before we begin, this video is sponsored by Scrimba. Now, Scrimba is the easiest and most interactive way to grow your coding skills. It's a mind-blowing technology that allows you to play around the code directly inside screencasts. For instance, you're about to watch my GSAP tutorial, and GSAP works really awesome with Vue. You can learn everything you need to know about Vue in Scrimba's Vue Bootcamp. It's packed with over 9 hours of content and tons of interactive lessons. So if you hurry up and click the link below here in the YouTube description, you will receive a massive discount, but you have to hurry because we're limiting it to the very first 50 people. All right, so first off, I have Visual Studio Code open. I have a new project just with some boilerplate HTML. Of course, if you're using Visual Studio Code, it has Emmet, so you just hit exclamation point enter to get to this point. And all I have right here is linked up is a style sheet of CSS main.css. Inside of there's nothing in it. I'm using Sass, by the way. If you want to use Sass too, you can just use, in the extensions, use the live Sass compiler, and also live server will be using that too to serve this. So once you create your Sass file and you have that extension installed, and you select the file, down here, there will be a watch Sass button. So I've already clicked that, and that outputs this main.css file here. Also, I do have like an illustration we're going to integrate here. That stupid coronavirus stuff. And then we're also going to, yeah, that's basically it. Just the image, the CSS, and make sure this is linked up. So the way we're going to get started here, we need to get integrated our GSAP and the Scroll2 plugin. So here's the main plugin page, ScrollTrigger. I will link it in the YouTube description. Click that, and it's going to give you example usage and all that good stuff. We'll refer to this in a bit, but we want to go to the installation. All right, so basically you go to the install page. I'll link this up as well. There's a nice little handy installer here for you. So we want to use the CDN option. You can use modules, npm, and CodePen. CDN, the Content Delivery Network. This is what will allow us to go as quickly as possible. So you could choose which plugins you want. Now by default, you have to install, or you have to include the core, which is right here at this line. And then we also, in our cases, we just want the ScrollTrigger. All right, so we'll copy those two lines. And just to demonstrate how you can get up running in the most simple manner possible, we'll go ahead and create a little bit of HTML here. Not much at all, trust me. So we're going to do not a script, but a section rather. And intersection, we're just going to say something like scroll down. And we're going to do another section. And this one's just going to be a class of block. So, no, box rather. There we go. Div class box. And then finally, we'll do another just empty section down here. And that way, we're going to use CSS to make each section 100% viewport height. So what we'll do is we're going to say body here. We'll get rid of any margin. And we'll make the font family Montserrat. I already have this installed, so I'm not going to import it or anything like that. And then height, 100 viewport height. And then also, we're going to reference our section here. We're going to say height, 100 viewport height. And we'll just do a text align center here for our text. And then we're going to take our box and we're going to give it a background of just red, a width of 200 pixels, and a height of 200 pixels. And we're good to go. All right, so at this stage, we're going to right click our index.html, open with live server if you included or installed that plugin. And here we go. We have just a really ugly example. And this is going to allow us making those sections of being, each one 100% viewport height. It's going to allow us to demonstrate the scroll functions and stuff like that. So what if we wanted to animate and move this thing or scale it down or change the color or any number of things once it comes into view like this with GSAP Scroll plugin? All right, it's extremely simple. All right, so we're gonna come down here, we're gonna put another script tag here. And what we're gonna say is, first we're going to just say GSAP and to our box, because that's the thing that we want to animate. And we're going to open that up. And inside of here, we're just going to say ScrollTrigger box. So we're going to, obviously we're using the same selector here, the box class, but this could be a different trigger. This could be a completely different HTML element or a class or whatever. And then we're just going to say, what do we want to do with it? We're just going to move it over by 200. Now we'll make it 500 pixels. So we're going to move box by 500 pixels on the horizontal x-axis once box becomes into view. Once it comes into view when you scroll down. All right, that's it. I mean, that's one of the most simple examples ever. So let's see if it works. Now it was already in view because I scrolled down there, so it already moved. But if I refresh, if we could see right now, it's probably right up against the edge because we're not scrolled into view yet, but if we come down, there it goes. Isn't that exciting? Probably not the most exciting thing, honestly, that you've ever seen. Now, what we can do, if we look at the documentation here, that was the very simple example that they showed here. Let me increase the size here so we can see this. There's an advanced example where you can pass in, from ScrollTrigger, you can specify an array right here, or an object rather, where you have a bunch of properties for your configuration, your options. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these. You can pin them. You can have a start and an end time in terms of when you start or when the element will be animated into. So for example, let's go ahead and do this real quick. So what we can do is we could say the trigger is going to be box still. We'll also say start, and we could say top. All right, and we'll leave that there, I think, just like that. So what exactly does this do? It'll make it not start until it reaches the top of the browser. Now you're probably wondering, what exactly does top mean? Well, basically, if you do a Control F here in your browser and type in center, you'll see you come down to this point where it mentions, for instance, bottom center. So instead of top, you can specify like bottom center. So what that means is when the bottom of the end trigger, or basically when the bottom of the element that you're targeting hits the center of the scroller. Okay, so when the bottom of the element that you're targeting hits the center of the scroller. So basically, this has to do with the position of the element that you're targeting, all right? And then this second value is based on the scroll bar, as I understand it. So for instance, if we choose bottom center and then center, we save it, Let's refresh. This should happen when the bottom of this red box ends up matched up with the center of the scroll bar. So right now, see? Very, very cool. So you have a lot of flexibility in terms of, you know, when these things will start to animate in. Now you can also use that pin option. So if we come back here, we scroll up just a bit, there's an option, pin true. All right, so what does that do exactly? So if we go back here and we just put in pin true, this will pin it for a certain amount of time while you're scrolling down. And you can also adjust that value, and it's a pixel-based value right here for instance, end right here. So if you change end, it will stay fixed for 500 pixels, and you can adjust that number as need be. Now there's other ones we're not going to get into exactly, just because this is a quick beginner's tutorial. But let's actually now use a real kind of just a real simple real life example of how you would probably use a scroll-based activated animation. So what we'll do is I'm going to just get rid of all this stuff, and instead of that in the middle section, we're going to go ahead and just make a custom class here on section. Oops, we're not going to do that. There we go. Class equals we're going to call this dark. It's going to have a dark background. Then we're going to have a content inside of it with an H2 element that says, "Are you really sick?" Outside of that, we'll have a paragraph. "Go get yo sick bleep tested. You might have the flu." Oh my God, so stupid. And then we're gonna have finally one more element, image source, images, illustration, and then we'll just say, I don't know, COVID-19 or something. All right, so let's go to our main.sass just to real quickly update this a bit. So our dark, we're just gonna say text align left, and then background will be almost black. So we'll just go like, I don't know, right around there. Actually, we'll go up a little bit higher, a little bit lighter. There we go. And then finally, we'll do color white and position relative. Then we're gonna have our image. So our image will be a width of like 50%, a height, 100 viewport height. Position will be absolute. And we'll do a right 0, top 0, and index, z-index rather, of 0. We only have one more roll set, or actually a couple more roll sets. We're gonna have our content here, just a padding of 9M and 5M units. Z-index will be 1 to make sure it's on top of the graphic. Our H2, we'll just say font size is going to be big, 5M units. Margin bottom is going to be 0. And then finally, our final rule set will be a paragraph, font size 1.6 M units. We do have one more property I wanted to show you. Notice how this is squashed, kind of. Well, let's go ahead and fix that. This is a cool property. Object fit cover. Never personally used that myself, so now it's going to keep it inside, but it's going to fit this automatically, so it's not squashed. So it has to do with proportions and constraining it. So now this doesn't animate at all. What if we wanted this to animate in? Maybe first the picture and then this content container that has these two type-based elements. All right, let's get started. Let's go to our index. All right, so now we're going to create a timeline. So we're going to say let timeline equals gsap.timeline. And inside of here, our scroll trigger, just like we did before, the target, or the trigger rather, is going to be our dark section element. And then also start We'll do center. Actually, we're not doing it. We'll add that after. Yeah, we're just going to do trigger dark. If you're doing it this way and you only wanted a trigger of dark, of course you could have done the shorthand way and just said dark like that. But because I do want to use other properties, I'm doing it this way. And then after that, after we've defined the timeline, we can then say timeline from, and we'll say our image. We're going to target our image first. That's going to be the first thing that animates. It'll move from the X position of 200. So be over about 200 pixels, and then it'll animate into its normal starting position. Opacity will be 0, and then duration, we're going to say 1.5 seconds. So now if we save this, and we scroll down, you can see how it just moves in right immediately. So if I like barely come there, it's going to start immediately. So now what we'll do is say from, and we'll do our content. Y is going to be 300. So this time it's going to come from, it's going to be a vertical sort of animation, and then we'll make it a duration of 1. And then we can also do an offset. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. I'll just show you without the offset. So now come down here. It waits until this animation defined on this line is fully complete, but it takes a while. So we can do an offset where we can say minus equals 1. So that means start 1 second earlier than you normally would have by default. All right, so now we can create kind of more of a pleasant animation. So let's refresh. There we go. Very cool. I want to add right here a start of center of the element, which is in this case is the dark trigger, which is that whole, you know, big large section, and then also bottom, and that means the bottom of the scroll bar. So now we come down. There we go. I kind of like that much better. You get to see more of like the full effect of the animation. And that's basically it. All right, so hopefully you found that useful. And now, you know, you're going to use GSAP if you have any type of, you know, more complex animations. Trust me, it makes life a lot easier when you have complex animations that you want to like rewind, restart, multi-step animations. It just makes a lot of sense rather than trying to have to do it from scratch. All right, guys, make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.